Come, come, let's hear the moral story. Come, come, let's hear the moral story.
All right, let's settle in for a story. It's about a simple gift, but this gift, well, it sets off a chain of events that are anything but simple. In fact, they get pretty strange and even a little dangerous. So our tale kicks off in a way you've probably heard before. There were once two brothers. Both of them had been soldiers, but that's pretty much where their similarities came to an end. And here's where their paths really split. You see, the poor brother, he just wanted a quiet life. He left the army, became a farmer, and pretty much fell off the map. No one remembered him. But the rich one? Oh, he stuck with the soldiering life, got incredibly wealthy, and was a big shot. Well known by the king himself. So just picture the poor brother toiling away day after day on his little piece of land. And then one day, something magical happens. A single turnip seed takes root, and it doesn't just grow. It grows and it grows, and it keeps on growing until it's this absolute monster of a vegetable, something nobody had ever laid eyes on before. And when I say big, I don't just mean prize-winning big. This thing was so massive, it filled an entire cart. And get this, it needed 2 full-grown oxen just to pull it. So the farmer is just staring at this giant turnip, right? And he's thinking, what on earth do I do with this? Selling it? Nah, that didn't feel right. Eating it all himself? That would feed him for a year, but it felt like a waste. And then he has this really simple, humble idea. He's going to take it to the king, just as a gift. So that's what he does. He hooks up his oxen to the cart and starts the long trip to the palace, all to deliver one giant turnip. Now, could you just imagine the king's face when this cart rolls up? He's completely blown away. I mean, this is a king. He's seen everything, right? Treasures from far-off lands, all sorts of wonders. But a turnip this size? No way. Never. So the king asks him, where in the world did you get this thing? And the farmer, he's just straight up with him. He says, look, I'm not some special lucky guy. I'm just a poor soldier. You've probably forgotten all about me, unlike my brother, who's always around the court. And you know what? The king is really touched by this, by his honesty, by the simple, bizarre gift. And he decides, right then and there, to completely flip this guy's life around. He gives him gold, land, animals, so much stuff that suddenly the poor brother is way, way richer than his rich brother ever was. Of course, a story like this can't stay happy for long, can it? As one brother's luck went up, the other's jealousy just boiled over. And this is where things take a really dark turn. So the rich brother hears about all this, and he is just seething with envy. He thinks, a turnip? Seriously? I can do way better than that. So he puts together this lavish gift of gold and horses and marches off to the king, expecting to get an even bigger prize in return. But the king is no fool. He sees right through the greed, and he has the perfect, most ironic reward ready. He tells the rich brother, I don't have anything more unique or special to give you than that giant turnip. And just like that, the rich brother has to lug the very thing that made him so jealous all the way back home. Oh, he is absolutely furious, humiliated. He doesn't know what to do with all this rage until a really, really awful idea starts to form. His envy isn't just envy anymore. It's turning into a plan for murder. And this wasn't some crime of passion. It was completely planned out. He goes to his brother, all friendly-like, talking about some hidden treasure they can find together. He leads him deep into the woods, right into an ambush. Hired thugs jump out, tie him up, and get ready to hang him from a tree. But right at that moment, just as things are looking hopeless, they hear something. Someone is riding through the woods, singing a song. The killers, they totally freak out. They don't know what to do, so in a panic, they just shove him into a big sack, hang it on a tree branch, and run for it. So now our hero is trapped, helpless, dangling from a tree in a bag. He's got nothing left but his own quick thinking to get him out of this mess. The traveler, who turns out to be a young student, rides under the tree and hears a voice call out from above, "Good day! You have come at a lucky time." He looks all around, totally confused. Who said that? And then, from inside the sack, the brother calls down again with probably the most brilliant lie you've ever heard. He says, "Raise your eyes. Here I sit aloft in the sack of wisdom." He spins this incredible story for the student. He says that from inside the sack, you learn the secrets of the universe, things that make regular school look like kindergarten. He lists all these amazing things he supposedly learned about the stars, the winds, the sea, healing illnesses, you name it. He makes this sack sound like the greatest invention in human history. And the student? He completely buys it. He's amazed, and he is desperate to get a piece of that magical knowledge. He begs the man in the sack to let him try it, just for a little while. And just like that, the tables have turned. So the brother plays hard to get for a minute, but then he's like, "Oh, all right." He tells the student how to lower the sack. As soon as he's on the ground, he hops out and bam, he grabs the student, shoves him in the sack head first, ties it up, and hoists him right back up into the tree. And as he's pulling the rope, he shouts up to him, "Behold, already thou feelest wisdom coming. Keep perfectly quiet until thou becomest wiser." Then he just gets on the student's horse and rides off, a free and very rich man. But here's a nice little touch. He's not totally heartless. He sends someone back an hour later to let the poor student out of the sack. So when you think about it, this whole thing started with a giant turnip that brought him a fortune. But in the end, it was his own cleverness that actually saved that fortune and his life. Which really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's truly the greater fortune? A monstrous turnip or a clever mind?
You've probably heard the story of Thumbelina, right? The tiny girl born from a flower. But what if it's way more than just a cute fairy tale? We're going to dive into her story and see it as this timeless journey, this search for something we all want, a place where we can finally, truly belong.
Okay, just for a second, really try to imagine this. What would it feel like if your entire world, everything you knew, fit inside the soft petals of a single blossom? It's not just a fantasy, it's the exact perspective that makes Thumbelina's story so personal, so magical, and, a really powerful way to think about finding our own spot in this huge world.
So, let's meet our hero, Thumbelina. Now, she doesn't exactly have a normal origin story. She's basically a wish for a child come true, popping right out of a magical flower. I mean, from the very beginning, you know her life is going to be different. She's unique, she's delicate, and, as we're about to find out, she's also incredibly vulnerable.
And her first home? It's like something out of a dream. She sleeps in a polished walnut shell, uses a single rose petal as her blanket. How cozy is that? It's this perfectly safe, sheltered little world. And you gotta hold on to this feeling of comfort, because it's exactly what she's gonna spend the rest of her story desperately trying to find again.
So, a miraculous beginning. But that gentle start? Well, it's not gonna last. One night, her entire world is just stolen away from her.
And this is where her real adventure kicks off. An old frog hops through the window, takes one look at Thumbelina, and doesn't see a person. Nope. She sees an object, a perfect bride for her son. And this is a huge theme, right? It's the first time, but definitely not the last, that someone else tries to decide what her life should be without ever once asking what she wants. She's literally snatched from her bed and just left on a lily pad in the middle of this enormous pond. Can you imagine? Her safe little world is gone, replaced by this terrifying wide-open space. She's completely helpless. Luckily, some kind little fish see what's happening and chew through the lily pad stem, setting her free. Her first escape. So now she's lost in a big world, and this next part of her journey is all about other people constantly trying to tell her who she is. She gets passed from one creature to another, and every single one of them has a plan for her. She gets this brief moment of freedom, just floating along, and then bam! She's snatched up again, this time by a beetle. But then his beetle friends all reject her. And why? Because she's different. She doesn't look like us, they say. It's a really painful lesson in being an outcast just because you don't fit in. So she's abandoned. But for a little while, she actually makes it work. She lives on her own all summer, totally happy among the flowers. But, that kind of freedom is tough to hold on to when you're all by yourself. And when that harsh winter starts to arrive, her problem isn't just about being lonely anymore. It's about sheer survival. And this brings us to a winter of despair. This is pretty much rock bottom for her journey. She finds an offer of safety, but man, it comes at a heavy, heavy price. She's basically forced to choose between staying alive and giving up everything that actually brings her joy. She's shivering, she's desperate, and she finds shelter with a field mouse. Now, the mouse is kind enough, but she's also super practical. The deal is clear. You get a warm place to live, but in exchange, you have to work. Her life becomes one of chores and servitude. Yeah, it's safety, but it is definitely not freedom. And just when you think things couldn't get bleaker, they do. The mouse introduces her to a rich neighbor, a mole, who proposes marriage. So just look at her options. Life with the mouse means being safe but stuck doing chores. Life with the mole means being rich and secure, but the catch? It means living underground forever, never seeing the sun or flowers again. For someone born from a flower, this is a living death. But just when all hope seems lost, we reach the turning point, an act of kindness. This is the moment where Thumbelina stops being a passive victim of her circumstances and becomes the hero of her own story, all because of a single, compassionate choice. While she's in the mole's dark tunnels, she finds an injured swallow that's been left for dead. Instead of just ignoring it, she secretly brings it food and keeps it warm, nursing it back to health all winter long. This quiet, selfless act, done in the shadows, is what's going to light her path to freedom. And here is the payoff for her kindness. On the very day she is supposed to marry the mole, the healed swallow returns and offers her an escape. Her compassion has literally given her wings. Her own actions have finally and definitively changed her fate. Okay. So it's time for her to find her sunshine. She accepts the offer, of course, climbing onto the swallow's back for this triumphant journey away from all that darkness and toward the life she was always meant to live. Can you even imagine that feeling? After a long, cold winter trapped in dark underground tunnels, she's suddenly soaring through the bright, open sky. It's the ultimate symbol of freedom. That stark visual contrast between the life she was escaping and the future she's flying right into. And where does the swallow take her? To a land that finally fits. It's warm, it's filled with the sunshine and flowers she loves, but most importantly, it's filled with other tiny people just like her. For the first time in this whole ordeal, she's not an outcast or a curiosity. She's simply home. And the story ends where it began. In a flower. The swallow places her gently in a white blossom, and there she meets a tiny flower prince. Here she is not a prize to be won or a servant to be managed. She is seen, she's understood, and she's loved for exactly who she is. So what's the real takeaway here? Thumbelina's long, hard journey teaches us something pretty profound. True belonging isn't just about being accepted by other people or trying to fit into their world. It's about finding that rare place and those rare people where you are free to be completely and totally yourself. And that leaves us with a final thought. Thumbelina's journey took her from a flower to a lily pad
to a dark tunnel, and finally all the way back to a flower. Everyone's journey.
Okay, get ready, because we are diving into one of the wildest, most bizarre fairy tales you have probably never heard. Forget everything you know about glass slippers and charming princes. This one starts with a bang. I mean, seriously. Our hero here, she doesn't arrive all wrapped up in a nice, neat little blanket. Nope. She rides in on a goat, carrying a wooden spoon. From birth. Meet Tatterhood. Her story is, well, it's anything but ordinary. So you're probably asking, how on earth do we get to a baby riding a goat wielding a spoon? Good question. Well, like a lot of these tales, it all starts with a king and a queen, and they wanted nothing more in the world than to have a child. So one day, the queen runs into this old beggar woman. And, the story kind of hints she might have been enjoying herself a little too much, if you know what I mean. Anyway, this woman gives the queen some, let's just say, very peculiar magical advice on how to get pregnant. Okay, so the ritual was super specific. You got to wash with 2 pails of water, then toss that water under the bed. Then the next morning, 2 flowers are supposed to pop up. But here's the most important part, the one thing she had to do. Eat the beautiful flower and leave the ugly one completely alone. Simple, right? But the queen, she sees both flowers. And I guess she just couldn't help herself. She ate them both. And wouldn't you know it, not long after that, she gave birth to twins, 2 baby girls. And these 2 sisters, they could not have been more different, night and day. The first one, that's our Tatterhood. The story literally calls her unspeakably hideous. And yep, she's the one who showed up riding her goat, spoon in hand. The second twin, though, the one from the pretty flower, she was fair and sweet and just absolutely beautiful. But here's the thing. Even though they looked so different, their bond was just unbreakable. They were like 2 halves of the same person. You just couldn't keep them apart. And that connection, it was about to be tested in the most awful, horrifying way you can imagine. So for years, everything was pretty normal. The 2 sisters grew up together, thick as thieves. But you know how these stories go. The peace never lasts for long. It all goes wrong on one very dark Christmas Eve, when the castle itself is attacked. Suddenly, this horde of witches and trolls just swarms the place. And Tatterhood, being Tatterhood, she doesn't even hesitate. She rushes right outside to fight them off. But her sweet sister, she gets worried and she just peeks outside for a second to see if she's okay. And that 1 second, that's all it took. A witch grabs her and does something absolutely terrible. I'm not even kidding. The witch rips off the beautiful sister's head and slaps a calf's head in its place. Just like that. A brutal, magical swap that leaves the poor girl completely, well, not herself. So once Tatterhood finally chases off the last of these monsters, she comes back inside and finds her sister like this, just this horrifying sight. But Tatterhood, she doesn't waste time on tears or freaking out. No, she is a hero of action, through and through. She marches right up to her dad, the king, and basically demands a ship and supplies. Right now, she doesn't have a crew, she doesn't have a map, but she has one clear mission: sail to the land of the witches and get her sister's head back. Period. And her plan is just as bold as she is. The 2 sisters sail off, just the 2 of them. They find the witch's lair, and Tatterhood doesn't even knock. She climbs right in through a window, sees her sister's head hanging on the wall like some kind of trophy, and just snatches it. The witches, of course, swarm her, but she fights them all off with, you guessed it, that trusty wooden spoon. So Tatterhood gets back to the ship, yanks that calf's head right off her sister, pops her actual head back on, and just like that, she's whole again. I mean, what a rescue. But believe it or not, their journey was far from over.
All right, so the sisters keep on sailing and they eventually land in this faraway kingdom. And of course, a handsome king sees the now restored beautiful twin and boom, falls instantly in love. He wants to marry her right away.
But Tatterhood, ever the deal maker, lays down an ultimatum. She says, okay, my sister can marry you, king, but only if I get to marry your son, the prince. Now here's the problem. The prince is, let's say, less than thrilled about having to marry someone everyone calls unspeakably hideous. The guy is in a massive sulk about the whole thing. So they're on their way to this double wedding, and the prince is just grumbling about having to ride behind her on her ugly goat. Tatterhood just turns around and asks him, "Why do you say my horse is ugly?" And when he looks again, it's true. The goat is gone. In its place is a gorgeous horse. Okay, so a minute later, he starts scoffing at the wooden spoon she's carrying. And again, she just asks, "Why do you call my silver wand ugly?" He looks, and that's exactly what he sees, a shimmering silver wand. He's not learning his lesson, though. Next, he makes fun of her raggedy gray hood. She asks, "Why would you call my beautiful golden crown ugly?" And what do you think he sees when he looks again? Yep, a shining golden crown right on her head. And so finally, with her goat turned horse, her spoon turned wand, her hood turned crown, she challenges him directly. She basically asked why he would dare to say that she, herself, wasn't beautiful. And the prince, he takes one last look, and suddenly he sees her for who she really is. Absolutely magnificent. See, she wasn't changed by some outside spell. She just declared her own reality and made him finally see it too. And with that, they had the double wedding. The king married the beautiful sister, the prince married the now magnificent Tatterhood, and, just like the story says, they all lived happily ever after. It really makes you think, right? Tatterhood never waited around for someone to come save her or transform her. She rescued herself, she saved her sister, and she defined her own beauty on her own terms. It just goes to show, sometimes all the magic you really need is a goat, a whole lot of grit, and yeah, a wooden spoon.
All right, today we are diving into a truly classic tale, one that you've probably heard of, but maybe don't know all the details of. The Legend of the Snow Queen. It's this incredible story about friendship and just how powerful love can be, even when the odds feel completely impossible.
And really, that's what this whole story boils down to. It's built on this one single idea, that the bond between two people can literally be a force of nature, powerful enough to melt even the most magical, a truly frozen heart.
So, our story kicks off with these two kids, Kay and Gerda, and they are the absolute best of friends, inseparable. Their world is this perfect, happy little bubble. But you know how these stories go. That perfect world is about to shatter, and it all starts with a piece of broken magic. Now here's where things get really interesting. The villain of the piece isn't exactly a person, it's a thing, a mirror. An evil troll made it, and its whole purpose was to twist reality. It made anything good or beautiful look twisted and ugly. You can think of it as a perfect metaphor for cynicism, right? It's a filter that only lets you see the bad in everything. Well, this mirror shatters, and millions of tiny poisonous shards of glass just scatter all over the world.
And this is the moment everything changes. Just by horrible luck, two of those microscopic splinters find their way to poor Kay. One gets in his eye, so everything he sees is now distorted and ugly, and the other, well, the other goes straight into his heart, basically freezing his ability to feel love or warmth. It's a quiet attack, but it is absolutely devastating.
And the transformation is just night and day. The Kay that Gerda knew and loved is just gone. Where he was warm and kind, now he's cold, critical, and mean. He used to love the beauty of the roses they grew together, but now he can only see their flaws. The magic didn't just change his mood, it completely rewired how he saw the entire world.
So, with Kay's heart now as cold as ice, he becomes the perfect target for the story's mysterious and powerful villain, the Snow Queen herself.
The queen is basically the human version of that coldness. She's described as beautiful, sure, but like a statue made of ice, flawless, but with zero warmth or life. She finds Kai, and to make sure he's truly hers, she blows this powder on him that makes him forget all about Gerda, his last connection to his old life. And then she just whisks him away to her palace way up in the frozen north.
Okay, so this right here is the most important part of the story. Kay's gone. Gerda is completely heartbroken, but her spirit, oh, it is not broken at all. This isn't a story about a princess waiting for a prince to save the day. No way. This is the story of a hero, Gerda. And what makes her a hero is her stubborn, powerful refusal to give up on the friend she loves.
And so, the real heart of our story begins. Gerda sets off on this incredible, epic journey with basically nothing but hope and the memory of her friend to guide her through this huge, dangerous world. Now, as she travels, Gerda meets all sorts of different characters. And what's so amazing is that even in a world that's been infected by the cruelty of that magic mirror, she keeps finding kindness everywhere she looks. From a magical old woman, to royalty, to a talking crow, even a tough little robber girl and a reindeer. Every single one of them helps her get a little bit closer to finding Kay. It just goes to show that goodness is still out there. After this long, long journey, she finally makes it. The final destination, the Snow Queen's palace. And it's described as this vast, endless place made of ice, and maybe even more chilling. It's a place of complete and total silence. It's the absence of all feeling.
And that's where she finds him. Not locked in a dungeon, but just empty. He's trying to solve this impossible, pointless puzzle, using pieces of ice to try and spell the word eternity. He's trapped in a game of pure, cold logic with no joy or purpose. The spell didn't just freeze his heart, it kind of stole his soul. So that brings us to the ultimate question, right? In this place that is the definition of cold, a place with no emotion, no life, what can one little girl's love possibly do against a magic that is so powerful?
Well, the answer isn't a magic sword or some kind of clever counterspell. The solution is actually something much, much simpler and, as it turns out, way more powerful.
This is it, the climax of the entire story. Gerda runs up to Kay, she throws her arms around him, and she just cries. And her tears, which are full of all her love and sadness, fall right onto his chest. And they do what no army or magic ever could. They melt the shard of ice around his heart.
And the change is instant. You can see how beautifully it all lines up. The shard in his heart melted. The shard in his eye, it gets washed away by his own tears, because now he can cry too. And with his heart and his vision clear, all his memories of Gerda, of home, of who he used to be, it all comes rushing back.
So hand in hand, they just walk out of the ice palace. It has no power over them anymore. They make the long journey home, and they're not just kids anymore. They're two people who have stared into the absolute coldest part of the world and came out the other side, stronger, wiser, and with a friendship that's been tested by magic itself. And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. This is more than just a fairy tale. It's a huge metaphor for how things like cynicism and cruelty and just coldness can make us feel isolated. So it makes you wonder, what are the splinters of ice in our world today? Those little moments of judgment or bitterness. And how could they too be melted? Not by some grand gesture, but by the simple, powerful warmth of a real human connection.
All right, let's dive down the rabbit hole and trace Alice's wild journey through Wonderland. So our story starts with Alice, who's just super bored, sitting with her sister. But then a talking white rabbit with a watch rushes by. Now that's interesting. And just like that, without a second thought, she follows him right down the rabbit hole. She lands in this weird hallway, just lined with a ton of locked doors. And on a table, she spots a little golden key and a bottle that just says, "Drink me." This kicks off total chaos with her size. First, she shrinks, then she's huge, then tiny again. Lost and all kinds of confused, she starts meeting Wonderland's very strange residents. First up is a very chill green caterpillar just smoking a pipe on a mushroom, and he gives her this cryptic tip. The mushroom he's on can actually control her size. Then she runs into the grinning Cheshire Cat, who just appears and disappears whenever he wants. He points her in 2 directions and casually says he'll see her at the Queen's game later. She picks a path and, well, stumbles right into the famous, totally bonkers tea party. Turns out their riddles don't even have answers. It's just pointless nonsense. So she gets out of there and finally makes it to the court of the fearsome Queen of Hearts. And the Queen? Her answer to everything is off with their heads, no matter how small the problem. And get this, her croquet game uses live flamingos for mallets and hedgehogs for balls. Seriously. Alice can barely play with her flamingo, which, of course, makes the Queen absolutely furious. Suddenly, a trumpet blast calls everyone to this completely ridiculous courtroom trial. And Alice is the one on trial for stealing tarts she's never even seen before. But right as the Queen is about to pass sentence, the whole crazy world starts to unravel. And she hears her sister's voice telling her to wake up. It was all a dream. So, let's recap her trip. From chasing a rabbit to facing off with a queen. What a ride. But as she wakes up, she sees a white rabbit dash away. So, was it really all just a dream?